long have you been on tour for? What night is this?
I've been on tour for about 35 years.
There's been a few gaps here and there, right?
A few gaps, but not that many.
Yeah. What's the longest you spent off tour?
Oh, probably a while.
You took a hiatus in 2014?
Oh, you mean just recently?
Well,
no, I didn't really take a hiatus. I mean,
yeah.
I don't even really know what that means, but no, I was making a record.
Yeah.
I was making an album, so we're getting some water would be good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You've never run into a wall at any point?
A wall?
Yeah.
I've run into a few walls. Yeah.
But you mean, in
terms of writing songs?
Yeah, in terms of, has there ever been any point in your adult life when you just haven't necessarily felt like playing music?
Yeah. Thank you. When I haven't felt like playing music? Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I can never think of what else to do. I mean, I thought, well, what else would I do? And I always, perhaps you could call it a lack of imagination, but yeah. I always think, well, I mean, sometimes I think that I'd like to stay home more. I really like being in the studio. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, well, maybe I could stay home more and just maybe work with different people, write songs. And I talked to Sia a while ago,
yeah.
and she said, why do you keep going on tour? Why don't you just stay home? And I go, yeah, maybe I should.
She's your niece, right?
Well, she's not my blood niece,
yeah.
But I've known her since she was born. So she's doing incredible things.
I'm curious about the dynamic between the two of you, because you're obviously a little more old school when it comes to getting your music out there.
Yeah, well, that's one way to put it. Old school is very kind.
Yeah, well,
it's very old-fashioned.
The first word is accurate either way, right?
Not very effective.
Is that right?
Well, I don't think it's very effective. No. I mean, it's effective to a point. But,
yeah.
I mean, she's well, for one thing, she writes those. She has incredible lyrical and melodic facility, and works very quickly, and she's kind of hit her stride at a perfect time, So, I mean, 35 years ago, I couldn't put a foot wrong, really.
Yeah.
When I was with the old band. And I'm doing good work now. Like, I'm not complaining. Going on tour I wouldn't do it if there wasn't something about it that I liked. But it's very difficult to get new material noticed if you don't get, exposure on.
Yeah.
I mean, radio is an old-fashioned medium as well, but it still has importance in terms of just exposing your music to the public. That's why television's really great, or film and television is good. And touring's okay. Like, my audiences are increasing, but it's incremental, as opposed to, getting a mass media exposure and building on that. You know what I mean? Mine's really been kind of from the ground up. Seriously. Ginger beer, and pretty much hand-to-hand combat the whole time, really.
The inefficiency there is that you end up, in a sense, kind of playing to the same audiences over and over.
Well, it's been building.
Yeah.
No, it's what I mean is, when I first started, for example, I'm in New York now, and I'm playing at the Town Hall tomorrow, which is a lovely place to play.
Thank you.
And I think that's about 1,500 people.
Yeah, it's a pretty large venue.
Yeah, but it's taken about 20 years to get to that point. Thank you. When I first came into New York, I was playing to maybe 100 people, 200 people. Then it would just grow from there. So you'd probably increase increase the audience by 100 or a couple of hundred people every year.
Yeah.
But it's all been word of mouth, so it's just people telling some other people. So you know that increase in audience is organic and quite real, you know.
But I mean, obviously you've had enough increases over the years, and given some of the successes you've had with soundtracks and things like that, TV appearances. I mean, those are enough to keep you going. If you felt like things were stagnating completely, if you felt like it wasn't growing anymore, would you just sort of call it a day?
Need some sugar with this or anything?
No thanks.
Just black?
Yeah, black is fine.
What was that question? You said if I felt what?
If you felt like you weren't making any progress in terms of growing your audience, I mean, would the impulse still be there to go out and play in front of audiences?
No. If the audience was not increasing, if it was just staying the same, or getting less, no, I would not feel like going out and playing.
Yeah.
That would be soul destroying.
You must have had a few moments of that though early on. I mean, you sort of.
You still have it. You still have it. You sometimes wonder whether the reason why you're going out on tour is simply because of habit, or addiction. But there is something there, and one of the reasons you do it is because it makes you feel useful, which is not to be underplayed or underestimated. That feeling you get from providing some kind of function, where people go out for a night and they spend 2 hours where they feel really good, and you're the reason why they feel good, or you're part of that reason why they feel good. So that's a nourishing thing.
I mean, you seem to be somebody who thrives in the live setting as well. You seem to actually enjoy performing, telling stories.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it?
Enjoying your job, enjoying life.
Well, it's one thing to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you do something over and over again, then the trick is to seem like you're enjoying it. Because there's no point in doing it otherwise. And sometimes you have to trick yourself.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to trick your subconscious into going, well, you're going to enjoy this whether you want, whether you're feeling like it or not. So in other words, you kind of take yourself out of it, you take yourself out of the equation, and put yourself inside it more, and kind of less in control of it. You let the song speak. You let the it's a little bit slightly esoteric, I suppose, but you're you're there, so you have some kind of control over the situation, but in a way you kind of let go of trying to really hold the reins too tight, and then you can relax a little bit, and something unusual might happen, or you leave yourself open for surprises, and just get out of your own way and let things be, and you can really enjoy the moment more.
Do you have that sort of that Bob Dylan impulse to make things sound a little differently, to try new things out as you're playing old songs?
Is that what he does?
Yeah, well, every just about every live show I've seen of him, the takes on the song sound incredibly different from performance to performance.
Yeah, you can do that. It's sometimes that's the conscious thing of doing that is it's maybe perhaps deliberately steering something in another direction because you want to, or you can just you can either be in the driving seat of that, or you can be a passenger.
Is the performance a part of songwriting for you at all, or it sounds like at this point you're spending the time writing an album, recording in the studio, and then playing the songs?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I look at it as being a three-pronged thing where you have ideas and you write songs, and then you record them onto some device, whether it be a tape or a software program, Pro Tools. You record it, so you make a record of those songs, and that's a performance in itself. That's the first performance, and it's the one you keep. So it's important. It's an important performance.
Better be good.
Yeah. And then you spend the rest of the time, in one sense, reproducing that.
Yeah.
Which is not so exciting, because it's a reproduction of that initial performance. So you have to, in a sense, make it something else. You have to constantly be open for it to be something else. Otherwise, all you're really doing is trying to replicate something which you've already done.
It's funny. I have this conversation with a lot of creative people, and obviously everybody, no matter how good your job is, or no matter how jealous other people are of your job, we've all got times where we don't necessarily want to do it, but it's, you sort of have to take a moment and remember that how lucky you are at the end of the day that this is what you're able to do for, not only what you're able to do for a living, but that you've been able to do it for as long as you've been able to do it for.
Well, that's the thing. That's the amazing thing, and that's one of the reasons why you you can look upon it as being luck.
Yeah.
But I don't look upon it as being luck so much. It's mainly tenacity, and mainly having something that people want to hear, or not everyone wants to hear it, but the people who come to see you, they obviously want something from you. There's something that you have that they keep coming back for and bringing other people. So that's good. And if you have a little bit of luck along the way, that's cool too, But I mean, I started doing this when I was 14.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate, I am fortunate. But I've always felt that. Even when I was very young, I felt fortunate because I had, I never was poor. I was never hungry. So I always felt very fortunate to have, come from a family that I was looked after, by my parents, and they gave me some really good, simple advice. Like my father just said to me, look, you just have to be prepared for life, which seems like a simple thing, but It's quite profound in its own way, which I think is true. You really do. You have to be prepared for whatever life throws at you and try and come through it somehow, or dodge it, or roll with the punches and keep moving, I think it's important to keep moving, forward, and because if you sit still, nothing happens, And then if you are moving forward, then you tend to attract luck.
Were you prepared for? So you started at 14. How old were you when the band really started taking off?
About 28.
About 28.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a decent amount of time of going out there and playing music. It's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to school as well.
Yeah.
I went to university and all that, but it was really, I was just coasting. I was biding my time, trying to write songs and try and figure out how to make a mark.
Yeah. Were you, as your father said, were you prepared for that initial wave of success?
I think so. I mean, I think that I think there were some difficulties, I think that there's some things I would have done differently. I think that men who are confined together for a while have very limited communication skills.
Yeah.
So you could probably diffuse situations or make things better if communication skills were better. But that's all looking back at things and the way things were, not the way things are. But I don't think my band was really destined to go any longer than it did, no matter what happened. So we were very, very successful. So and I felt that I was prepared for that to a degree. It's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I got what I wanted.
You wanted to be a rock star.
Exactly, and I got that. And then the interesting thing I think is once you get it, it's like, okay, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And then if it goes away, what do you do with the rest of your life?
It's a pretty early point to be dealing with worrying about the rest of your life, at that age.
Yeah, I think so.
I had heard you at some point describe. I think you had sort of described the group as being basically a bunch of hippies, and that in a sense, as a band as we know it now, that you were kind of created in the studio in terms of turning you into a pop band, in terms of really like bringing you up to the 1980s in a way. Did that change things for you? I mean, when you were really, and I think probably at your heart have always been this kind of singer-songwriter, did you feel that there were certain expectations that you needed to live up to?
No, I think what it was when we started playing live, we were very good live, and we always attracted a really strong live audience. But what we really were really a jam band.
Yeah.
We really jammed a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for a band to try and figure out where the songs are going. Mm. And it's like road testing a song.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can write a song very, very well, very succinctly, and then go out and play it for 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes. But we tended to stretch the songs because that's who we were.
Yeah.
Greg played saxophone, played flute.
When you've got a flute player in the band, there's some jamming.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you want to or not. Yeah. So the songs were like that. For example, Who Could It Be Now?
Yeah.
It always had the saxophone hook in the song, but it didn't appear until halfway through it. So all the elements were there. But what the producer did, Peter McKee, an American guy, when he came in was he took the best elements and all the memorable and integral elements of the song, and he just arranged them in a much more efficient way. In a good way, I think. Yeah. And presented them as 3.5 minute pop songs, which worked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
I liked it. I mean, I liked what he did.
Yeah.
I liked what he did with the songs because I always thought there was too much shit in them anyway. Too much unneeded fucking waffle.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of say what you will about commercial appeal, but there's a lot to be said for a song that. And it's still playing on the radio.
You see, the thing is that people always talk about commercial. I mean, it was only commercial because it worked.
Yeah.
It may not have.
Yeah.
It may have been like a cult hit. Then people wouldn't have called it commercial. Sure. If it hadn't have sold millions of records. It's only commercial after the fact. So
I guess.
So people always think that. So people always think it was designed in a certain way, but. It's not really true. You're just trying to write the best songs you can, and you're trying to present them in a way where you don't really need anything in the song.
Yeah.
That's really, I think, more important than anything is that you're. If a radio programmer is going to listen to a song, he's not going to listen to it for 2.5 minutes before he hears the hook of it.
Sure.
You want to get to him in the first. Or you want to, and in that sense, you want to get to anybody who's listening to a song in the first 20 or 30 seconds. Otherwise, you're not going to have them anyway. So it's a real art to doing that, and it's I like it. I like pop songs, in that sense. I'm not talking. Commercials are a word that just people made up because if something really does well. But I like really well constructed pop songs. It's very hard to do. People should try it sometimes. It's not as easy as you think.
As you're going out there, and I know that obviously you would love to have your songs played on the radio.
I still think I write pop songs, but other people.
Well, this is what I was going to ask. Are you are you conscious of this idea of trying to grab some? I mean, obviously you've got your built-in fans. You've got somebody who's going to buy.
You take a song like Trying to Get to You, which is on the first track on Next Year People. To me, it's a great pop song.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. It's a great pop song. Not because I want to necessarily, I want to write a song to get on the radio, but that's the way it's constructed. It's inspired by listening to, Rubber Soul or the Beatles and trying to go, here's a song that's driven by acoustic guitars, but it's melodic. it's got really good things going on in it. It's a really cool pop song. Now, I think it is, but it doesn't get played on pop radio.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that it's not a good pop song.
Has it gotten any easier to write a good tight 3-minute pop song for you? After you've been doing it for a few decades?
Not really. Yeah, they come and go.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote that with a friend of mine, Michael Georgiadis, who lives up the road from me. He's a bit older than me, but he still writes good pop songs too, and he's 70, nearly, he's older than I am. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, coming together with something and coming up with something that you just like to listen to yourself. I mean, all you really want to do is excite yourselves, get yourself excited, maybe get your wife excited and get your friends excited. That's really it. Beyond that is who knows, but you kind of want to go. You want to say to somebody who's upstairs, "Hey, come and listen to this. This is cool."
When at what point do the wife and friends get to hear the songs?
Oh, she hears them all the time. She hears them because she can hear them upstairs in the house. So she comes
But
down.
you run
sometimes.
upstairs to the guitar, or she runs down?
No, she comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah, she comes down. Or sometimes I go up and go, "Could you please come down and listen to this?"
The really good, and I've heard you tell a few of these stories, but obviously like the really good stories are the ones where the inspiration comes in a flash, where you hear something or you read something and you need to go run and write a song about it. But I've got to imagine that that's in the minority of the songs that you're writing at the end of the day. There's probably a lot of just sort of scratching out pieces of paper and
it's not so much about inspiration. It's just really about, you hear something, like you say, you might get a little phrase and you go, "That's cool," and you write that down, or a little musical idea and you record that, and then you build them up over a period of a little while, and then you go home and listen to them and you go, well, and you try and figure out whether there's a germ of something in there. And then the hard work is trying to finish it. That's hard work. It's not so much about inspiration. It's just kind of trying to make it good.
What is the there's the classic Keith Richards Satisfaction story about like him waking up in the middle of the night with a guitar riff in his head. What's the easiest song? What is there? Can you point to one that really just kind of poured out of you?
Well, yes. There's a few different answers to that, but say Down Under, for example. Down Under was Ron, the other guitar player in Men at Work. He and the other co-writer of that song. He used to have these little tapes, and he gave me a little cassette that I played in the car over and over again. And lots of different ideas, but this one particular one was just like this really percussive kind of trance-like groove that used to just kind of roll along, and I loved it. It was just a simple little thing. And it was just a simple thing with some percussion and little percussive elements to the song that were played on bottles with different amounts of water in them to give them different pitch. And I listened to it for weeks, and I just had this phrase in my head, living in a land down under, which is living in a land down under. That's all I had, and I would just kind of repeat it for weeks. And it was kind of almost like something has to build something. It's like just like a repetitive thing in your head, and then all of a sudden it's like a door opens and you go, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah.
And there's the song, and then I wrote the song out the next morning. Everything, just the chords and the words. But so you just kind of go over and over and over and over something, and then like something shifts, and there,
you're sort
there
of
it
orbiting.
is.
You knew it was close. You're orbiting around this
Yeah,
idea.
I was hoping,
Yeah.
I knew something. It was something.
Yeah.
And again, that's important to, not to force it, but to keep the pressure on. In a way,
I like your first example of an easy song to write was one that you were thinking about for weeks and weeks and almost getting.
That's right. Oh, then there was that song. There was a song called Maggie that I have, which I wrote on a Sunday because I hadn't written a song for a while, and I was feeling a bit guilty, and I thought I have to write a song because it's Sunday and I'm sitting around and that one just came out. I thought about this person that I used to know in Scotland, this girl, and I just started to wonder about her, And so that song came out in about 40 minutes, and I just wrote it down, and I was weeping convulsively while I was writing it, but that was fast. So that was a combination of a fictitious story which was based on a real person.
Is that the first place you go when you're looking for inspiration? Is just some example from your past?
No, I don't really go looking for anything. I don't really go looking for inspiration. I just kind of sit around with it. I mean, I just sit around with a guitar, really.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for anything really, or not consciously anyway. I think that you put yourself in a situation sometimes where ideas can come to you. You know, for me, I like there being relatively little chaos in my head.
Yeah.
I can't really don't really come up with much if there's stuff going on in my head. You know, it's like going into a hotel, like a hotel foyer, and there's bags all stacked up, you know, and chaos going on, and people running around and
sitting in a hotel bar, maybe.
No, not like this. This is fine.
Okay.
But people's people's rooms not being ready.
Yeah.
People yelling at the guys behind the reception and stuff, and then you just want to turn around and walk straight out.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Nothing germinates there. Nothing takes there. You know. But if you walk in there and there's a sense of calm, or there's a little fountain, and you just kind of can sit down, and there's a calmness about it. That's what I like anyway. That's what I like. That's the situation or the state that I like to be in. To finish a song, not necessarily initiate something, but to sit down and finish ideas. I like there to be some kind of stillness.
Do you meditate? It sounds like that might be helpful.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
you do. Has that helped?
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things I ever decided to do. I don't do it every day. I should do it every day, but I don't do it every day. I'd like to say that I did do it every day, but most days.
When did you start doing that?
When I was giving up the drink, about around the late 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, very much a transitional period for you. Was it?
It's what brought me to America. Partly what brought me to Los Angeles was, one reason. The main reason was because I could base myself anywhere because I'd had success with the old band. So I had the opportunity to come to Los Angeles, and I was about to sign a record deal with MCA Records, but also I was having trouble with addiction.
Yeah.
And I was also getting divorced, so everything was pointing away from Melbourne for me at that time.
That's a lot of stuff to deal with at the same time. Congratulations on giving up and on the alcohol and not going in completely the other direction, because a weaker man.
Well, it's not even so much to do with being weak. It's really just a matter of telling yourself the truth. You know, it's kind of. I used to love drinking, and I wouldn't have stopped if I didn't have to, but I knew that I had to. So it's just a question of the mechanics of how you do it. And I wanted to stop because I knew that I was killing myself. So, I mean, you die anyway at some point, but you want to have some control over it.
Yeah.
And also over how much enjoyment you get from your life. I wasn't really enjoying what happened, when I would drink. I wasn't enjoying where that took me.
Yeah.
So something had to happen, and also it's tied into what you're talking about touring and playing music, because if you have you have your creativity will help. It will act as it will largely be some kind of salvation for you. Because it replaces that addictive behavior with something which is got more light in it.
And you felt like you needed to get away from your surroundings, from the things that had sort of led to some of that drinking, and take your second trip all the way across the world.
That's right, and start again, and wipe the slate clean and start again. That's what I did. It was really great. It was very beneficial and well needed, and it worked. It helped.
Was it clear immediately that you were going to be solo? Did the idea of another group ever enter into the equation?
Well, I had a band at that point. I had a band called Colin Hay Band, and I did an album called Wayfaring Sons with that band, but it was short-lived.
Yeah.
But then after that was over, I just, I was kind of sick of bands. I wasn't really sick of bands, but I was sick of the responsibility that came along with it, of looking after people,
Yeah.
And I could barely look after myself. That was what was happening. I was struggling, so I just thought I just have to be on my own for a while.
There's a different sort of responsibility, and certainly the pressures are different when you're the person who's solely responsible for what you're doing. I mean, you can't really lay the blame on anybody else.
I never did that anyway, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the old band, I did a lot. I mean, everyone played their part.
Yeah.
Men at Work was definitely five people that contributed, to the overall sound of the band and so forth. But when we get to a rehearsal room, everyone was standing around looking at me. What are we going to do now?
But I guess from the standpoint of you weren't. It took a while for you to, I think, really kind of figure out what you were doing as far as being a solo artist.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
But it was really rocky there at the beginning. You were dropped from your label at one point, and
oh yeah. Well, I was dropped from MCA. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that was good. That was a good thing.
That was a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be where you're not wanted.
Sure. How did you pick up the pieces?
I just made a record. I went back to Melbourne and went to Greg Ham's studio in Melbourne, and made a record called Peaks and Valleys for a friend of mine who had a label down there in Sydney called Melody. It's called Melody. Was it called Melody? Yeah. I made an acoustic album.
Yeah.
Yeah, just started again. Started from the. It's I kept things simple.
It's a little cliche, but it sounds like another role that music making plays in your life is I don't know if it's catharsis, but really a way of kind of burying yourself in your work if you're dealing with something on a personal level, kind of burying yourself in your work when you're dealing with personal crisis.
Yeah, I never even looked at it like that either. It was always just play some tunes for people, Yeah. It wasn't. I never really felt so much that it was about me, But yeah, songs. Some of them are have autobiographical qualities, and some of them are more just stories,
Yeah. Well, there's that aspect of it, but there's also just the aspect of kind of keeping yourself busy,
absolutely.
not having to deal with these outside forces. I know there was, and I don't know if you even talk about it, but there was the lawsuit not all that long ago. Was that something where you wanted to just sort of get back in the studio and get back to work?
Well, I did during it, but that was still going on during that time. I made a couple of records even during that time.
That was a really long period of time, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, that was fucking horrible. It's a horrible situation, very depressing, and very very negative, and pointless.
Yeah.
You can look back on it and realize that it was pointless.
Yeah.
It cost $4.5 million. The court case. And they ended up getting awarded in dollar figures like 100 grand. So it's like $4.5 million chasing 100,000,
Yeah.
which makes no sense. But at the time, if you're being sued by somebody and they want 60% of your song, then you got to fight it. But ultimately, it was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
And caused not only financially was it draining, but it was emotionally draining, and I would say contributed to the way Greg was feeling, which ultimately he died. And I know that court case certainly didn't make him feel any better about himself. Horrible.
Tell me something good, so we don't end on such a downer note. Give me some good news.
Well, let me tell you about Greg. He was one of the most wonderful men that I ever met, and I miss him every day. But he was one of the funniest people in the world, and he was really the. In many ways, he was one of the reasons why the band stayed together for so long, because he was a really, bright, light energy. He was really. I don't mean light as in weight. I mean light as in light and darkness. He was fabulous to work with, and he was a real facilitator of, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Between the other energies within the band. So he was such a lovely man, and it's terrible. It's terrible that he's not here anymore.
Do you miss collaboration in the way that you had it when you were a full band?
No, we didn't collaborate that much, to be honest. I mean, I would write songs, and
yeah,
there's a little bit of that, but we'd get to the rehearsals and we'd rehearse songs, but no, I still collaborate with people.
Yeah.
You collaborate with whoever you work with. If they come into this, they walk into the studio to work on something, you're collaborating with them.
Yeah. Is your stuff better when you're working with someone else?
Well, it depends. Sometimes songs and situations feel like they have a solitary component, that they should just be treated that way. And then sometimes having somebody else's contribution and energy really takes it somewhere better than you could come up with yourself. But often it's just circumstantial, then sometimes design. Sometimes you, like with that song Next Year People on the last record, I wrote those words, and then I was maybe going to work with my friend Michael on that song, and we never really came up with any music for it. And then I just was sitting around myself one day, and then the music popped out. So ended up that was a song which was just really my thing.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes you get to a point with something and you can't go any further, so you take it to somebody else, and they finish it, or they take it down a road you couldn't think of yourself, and all of a sudden you end up with something which is not only better but different from what you thought it would be, and hopefully better.
There you go, that was Colin Hay. Thanks so much to him for taking the time to do that. Recorded that one in the at a little bar in his hotel lobby while he was out here in New York City. Really fascinating conversation. Wasn't sure where it was going to go, but I think it went to some really interesting conversations. I think it went a little bit long too, so I apologize to there were some scheduling questions, so I apologize to the person who's waiting after us, but I don't know, went for the best for us. Really, really interesting, especially toward the end there. Thanks so much to him for taking the time to do that. Thanks to Carrie for setting that one up. Thanks to Brian for editing the show together. Thanks to Mark and everybody else at the Boing Boing Podcast Network. If you like this show, many other fine shows to check out over on iTunes. And while you're over at iTunes, you should take the opportunity to rate the program. Give us some stars. Any feedback, it's rywildcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Tumblr. That is the first and best place to get all of your RIYL related information. That's rywildcast.tumblr.com. What else? Like us on Facebook.
And check out Colin's new record. It's out now from Compass Records. It's called Next Year, people, and it's really, really great. So thanks so much to him. Thanks to you guys, and we will be back just about this time next week with another episode of RIYL.